Wolf Haven International is a wolf sanctuary in Tenino, Washington, founded in 1982, so we're celebrating our 41st anniversary today. And we are committed to conserving and protecting wolves and their habitat.
Wolf Haven as a whole is an organization that focuses on the many aspects of wolf and habitat conservation. But our sanctuary in particular specializes in high quality, individualized care for wolves and high content wolf dogs. In our sanctuary, half of the residents are rescued wolves and wolf dogs that come mainly from the pet trade, and the other half are highly critically endangered red wolves and Mexican wolves that are federally managed and part of a conservation program. Wolf Haven is accredited by the American Sanctuary Association and the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, searches for the highest levels of excellence, and we are currently the only wolf sanctuary accredited by GFAS in the whole world.
So we don't have any wild wolves here. They all come from captivity, and it's primarily from people who want, and I should say wolves and wolf dogs, people who want to quote unquote have an exotic dog, people who are dog lovers and they think I'm going to take the next step up, I want to get a wolf dog or a wolf. And clearly it's very difficult to meet the mental and physical demands of owning a wolf or a wolf dog. So we end up having them in the sanctuary because people realize they can't keep up with the physical and mental demands.
Every year, thousands of animals enter the captive wildlife trade, and these animals can sometimes be victims of the illegal pet trade. Sometimes they're animals that are surplus from roadside zoos. Sometimes they come from backyard breeders. And you can buy wildlife at these big auctions. You can buy them through pet stores. You can buy them directly from backyard breeders. And you can even buy wildlife over the internet. And there are a lot of reasons why people may want to buy wildlife. And so one of the biggest, and I think one of the most problematic, is the entertainment industry. And so folks wanting to have wildlife on display or performing at places like roadside zoos or circuses. You've got the whole movie industry. Sometimes people think having wildlife would be a great pet. And sometimes you have people that think wildlife can serve as really good ambassadors for their species for different conservation programs or initiatives. And unfortunately, what often happens is that these animals are bought when they're young. And when they get older and become a little bit more difficult or impossible to manage, then they get relinquished or they're confiscated. And then there's a need for a forever home.
Shasta is one of our wolves that's on the public route. She's an interesting example because we know that she came from private ownership, but she came to us after about 8 years from another rescue organization. We really don't know much about her from before that. She's very shy, which is common, but she's on the visitor route anyway because for whatever reason, she does well with groups. She doesn't get overly stressed. She may hang out more to the back, but she's not upset by the people being there.
We have our wolf Sierra. She was actually found in Hollywood Hills, walking the streets. Someone tried to keep her as a pet, and that might have been cute when she was a pup, but when she became an adult, they either let her loose or she escaped. And some kind citizens were able to lure her and trap her, and she ended up here with us.
Not too long ago, we were contacted by a family who was looking to place actually two animals, two siblings, wolf dog pups. And at the time we were looking for a companion for Sierra, and she had lost her companion recently, and we always try to keep the wolves in pairs because they thrive in companionship. And so we were like, well, what do? We cannot take two animals for Sierra. And then at about the same time, we actually lost two of our very elderly wolf dogs, and a space open. So we took the opportunity and we decided to go rescue this pair. The thing is that at the very last moment, they let us know that a family that had purchased a sibling had returned him because they couldn't handle him. He was too much for them, and so they regretted having ever purchased this pup. And a very kind family went and caught them and took them to their house, and when they realized they couldn't have them as dogs, they contacted us. So when we drove all the way to Colorado, we got there to meet them, and we met this family with an amazing heart, and their kids were caring for all these rescued animals. And these 3 siblings were running in this little pen. And so the next morning, very early, we put them in crates, and we drove all the way back with them to the sanctuary. The 2 original pups, the female and the male, are living together in an enclosure in the back of the sanctuary, and then Mesa was paired with Sierra. And even though he's fairly young compared to her, they get along super well. She actually is more playful now. They chase each other all the time. They love to chase ravens. And he's very, very boisterous and loud. I'm impressed that he's not making any vocalizations right now, but he has quite the character, and you can really see why he wouldn't make a good domestic animal.
We actually have 2 groups of wolves at Wolf Haven. The other group are our safe animals, Saving Animals From Extinction, and that entails the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, so it's a federally run program along with other groups like zoos and sanctuaries that will be captive breeding and managing highly endangered species of wolves, and there are 2 currently, the red wolf and the Mexican wolf. So we do captive breeding for the most importantly, to increase genetic diversity. Some of these animals are released into the wild. Obviously, we'll increase genetic diversity in the wild since they're endangered, and then also in captivity, we can have a strong gene pool.
So the red wolf is one of the most endangered canids on the planet. There are currently around 300. And that includes the captive population. There are only about 30 or so in the wild. So Wolf Haven's been participating since 2003. And what we do here is we house wolves. We sometimes breed wolves here for the program. We are on our 5th litter right now. So we're trying to increase the captive population to then reintroduce them to the wild.
The Mexican Wolf Conservation Program is an impressive collaborative effort between Mexico and the U.S., which goal is to reestablish the wild population of Mexican wolves, who is a distinct subspecies of the gray wolf. It has 2 parts. One part is the one in the wild, who monitors and manages the reintroduced population in the recovery area, and the other part is the one that manages the population under human care, which includes a very selective captive breeding program. And all of this is done under the umbrella of an ACA SAFE, which is Saving Animals From Extinction program.
As we are at a place where there are more than 8 billion people on the planet, we are putting unprecedented pressures on the environment and on wildlife. So things like habitat destruction, degradation, climate change, increased levels of poaching and wildlife trafficking. All these create immense obstacles for conservation. But then on top of that, you also have the social dimensions with people and the divisions among people and the inability or a lack of interest in collaborating and partnering and working together to find creative solutions to complex problems. So I think those things combined really put some pretty big barriers to conservation.
We currently care for 50 animals in our sanctuary. That includes 2 recently born red wolf pups and also the oldest Mexican wolf alive. Her name is Noel, and she is 18 years and a half.
Care for the wolves is a all-day, every-day affair here at Wolf Haven. We start every day with morning rounds. That's the most important part of our day. So we get here early, first light usually, and we walk through the sanctuary and we try to get just a baseline on every animal. Like, how do they look? We give out medications to any animals that are on medications. We check behaviors, anybody limping, anybody appear to have any conflict with who they're housed with, and then we go from there.
We are scrubbing buckets, we're changing straw in their shelters, we are fixing fences, digging holes, preparing their food, feeding them. but it's also incredibly rewarding work getting to take care of the animals.
And they have organs, tendon, some scrap meat. And we have some that are thawed for older animals that have a hard time chewing the frozen things. And then we also have deer here, meat over here and in that bin, and those are for the safe Mexican wolves and red wolves that can be potential for release. And they eat the natural prey.
Wolves are only successful 1 out of 10 efforts to make a kill. So if you imagine if they're chasing a herd one day and they don't get to eat, that's a strong, healthy herd. Next day, maybe there's a herd, eastbound, chasing that herd of elk. Same thing, they're not successful hunting. You imagine running and burning that energy and getting so hungry and you still haven't eaten. So they have a hard life in the wild. They also get diseases, parvo, and other diseases. So they only live on average to be 4 to 6 years old in the wild, because they have such a hard life. So in captivity, and obviously we're talking Wolf Haven or a reputable sanctuary where animal welfare is number one, they generally can live to be 17, 18 for the fact that, they're not having to fight for their food, they're not getting the diseases so much, nothing's clear of disease, but they're well cared for, so they live a long, peaceful life.
When we're talking about a sanctuary, especially one as beautiful as this one, it's not all as romantic as it may sound. We must be very mindful to not miss the point, because no matter how high quality the care can be, captivity is still captivity. And even though these animals receive great food, vet care, and lush habitats, they still depend on our decisions, and this naturally has limitations. And as much as we care and love these animals with all of our beings, this is not where they truly belong. They belong in the wild. But ultimately, our goal should be to not exist. Like if at some point wild animals, wolves, are not bred for entertainment or commercial purposes and the wild populations are thriving, then there would not be a need for a place like Wolf Haven to exist.
Wolf Haven is committed to reducing and eventually eliminating the spread of wolves and wolf-dog hybrids in the black market pet trade. So if you ever had considered, trying to either get a wolf as a pet or, purchase a wolf-dog hybrid, I highly encourage you not to do that. Oftentimes they end up having to be rescued by organizations like ours and live out their days in a sanctuary.
I just want to emphasize how important or how critical I think it is that we all find ways to be a little more open and to be a little more tolerant and to be a little kinder with one another. I think we are in a stage and in a time when there's so much division among people, and particularly around how we care for and how we manage wildlife and wild lands. And that can make conservation feel really overwhelming.
We are here and we exist for the wolves. And so what that means is our operations are entirely based on trying to provide wolves with the most comfortable environment possible. And of course, they're wild animals. And so we will try to therefore limit their exposure to humans. And so one challenge that leads to in fundraising is there are folks out there who might only want to give to Wolf Haven if they could have up close and personal interactions with the wolves. But we don't allow that, and so therefore our donors need to be comfortable with the fact that they're supporting our mission and kind of doing it from a distance. They're not really able to have a close, intimate relationship with the wolves, go into the enclosures as they can in other places. There are so many things that people can do to support Wolf Haven. First and foremost might be to try to sign up to be a volunteer. They could also become a donor of Wolf Haven, of course, become a member. They can symbolically adopt a wolf. So, and then I guess they could, if folks want to support Wolf Haven, you can also follow us on social media, where we have very active and fun postings that we will put on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and elsewhere. And you can follow us and then, repost and share with your community some of the cool things going on at Wolf Haven.
You could also be more active in public decision making. There's always a chance for everyone to make a difference.